21st century can be India's century only if we get away from the narrative that the government of India and the BJP are pushing India towards.
Hi, I'm Shoma Chaudhury. Thanks for watching Inquiry. Sachin Pilot is one of the Congress's most high-profile and promising leaders. But he's had a politically rocky year. Now, after a bad showing in the Panchayat and Zilla Parishad elections in Rajasthan, Sachin has very sportingly agreed to come on Inquiry to take hard questions on himself, the Congress, and why they're having such a difficult time playing the robust role that they should in Indian politics. Thank you very much for joining me, Sachin.
Thank you very much.
Sachin, sadly, I'm speaking to you at a time when your party's just come out of a very poor showing at the Panchayat and Zilla Parishad. 2 years ago, there was so much momentum around the Congress in Rajasthan, a lot of it coming out of your work. But 2 years later, there's a lot of disarray in the party. Your momentum is lost, and this is very granular feedback from the ground. What do you say about it? And do you think you yourself have played some role in, the kind of state that the party is in Rajasthan?
I think there are two things going on right now. One is that the entire country, and especially the farming community, is up in arms with the 3 farm bills that the central government has pushed through. The point is that today the farmers are agitated. And of course, Rajasthan is primarily an agrarian society. The BJP, I think, is trying to show that the up and down in the local panchayat polls is somehow an endorsement of the 3 bills that they've passed, which is completely false. I don't think we have done as well as we should have. But having said that, I also don't think that this is a real stamp of approval for the 3 farm bills that the government of India has passed. We will have a review as to why we could not do as well as we should have done, because I think the party structure has not been appointed yet. We don't have a Pradesh Congress committee, which our General Secretary Ajay Makhanji has spoken to us, and we are very soon forming that.
But Sachin, it's definitely a reference on the government, because Panchayat and Zilla Parishad, the elections are more about local issues. It's about governance patronage. It's not really a referendum on the national issues. And if you go by that, then, the Bihar elections have just happened. And that's, again, a very agrarian community, a lot of farm labor coming from there. BJP did splendidly there as well, So beyond the reviews and the committees and all of that, Sachin, you're a political person that people have pinned a lot of hope on. So I'd like some frank assessments from you.
Like I said, Shoma, I think obviously everyone would have expected us to do better. But let me also tell you that the difference of vote share between the Congress and the BJP in the Panchayat polls was less than 1%. So it's great. It's big news for news story making that, the ruling dispensation was not able to get majority. And we should run better. In fact, there are some areas where Congress has traditionally done very well, even when we were in opposition. When we were just 21 MLAs 5 years ago, we did better. Of course, COVID times has hampered our ability to go and access the electorate, meet them, and talk about the work that we have done. But having said that, I'm quite frank about it that these panchayat polls certainly will make us work even more harder. We have 3 more years of the government left, and this is a government that we all worked very hard to create. Don't forget, 2018 when we won the elections, that was the back of 5 years of work that all of us did together. From 21 MLAs, we are today 107. BJP was 163 in 2013 and they were reduced to 70. So we all worked hard to make this government, and now it's incumbent upon us to fulfill all the promises of our manifestos and whatever we promised the voters.
So I started my question with saying that, Sachin, that 2018, there was so much momentum around Congress. You've come off from a very high profile political showdown 6 months ago. It almost broke the government, but it was a very, very messy affair. What were you assured? What has changed on the ground? Because the rivalry and the disaffection clearly continues. And secondly, do you think that whole episode dented your own image? Because you've always seen as a very, very promising political leader, someone who was issue-based, and yet that particular rebellion looked like it was more, about you not getting the CM's position or getting the political positions you would have expected.
Well, I'll just make 2 short points because I don't really want to go into details, because then there are lots of opinions that come after every statement I make. I was Congress president of Rajasthan for 6.5 years. That's the longest term anybody has had in 70 years. And I'm grateful for the party to have reposed that faith in me. In every of those 6 years, whenever there was panchayat polls, by-elections, Vidhan Sabha elections, the party performed well. And that happened because all of us were able to work together. And as head of the family, it was my responsibility to take people together. Once the government was formed, there are issues that were very obvious to everyone and to me. And I took up those issues and I said what I had to say. Now, the party leadership in New Delhi met with all of us and we strategized how to move forward. The idea ultimately, and I'm going to make this very clear, it's not about A, B, or C being in a position X and Y. It's about you as a political activist, as a political worker, as a people's representative. Are you able to fulfill those promises and commitments? Now, how can we do it better? I'm not saying we haven't tried, but I'm saying we can do better. There's certain pointed issues that I brought to the notice. And I think in a democracy, in a government, in a party, there's nothing wrong in highlighting what you think could be done better. There have been some changes made in the organization. There is a committee that's looking into it. The General Secretary in charge of Rajasthan, Mr. Makan, I think he's very hands-on. And in the next 4 to 5 weeks, you'll see all those changes that were in the pipeline being enacted on the ground. But that's not the ultimate objective, right? It's not about so-and-so being appointed or accommodated. It's about how we as a elected government are able to live up to the expectations that people have. I've been in politics now for 2 decades, Shoma, and I think I have tried to discharge whatever responsibility I've been given with utmost honesty. I've been quite frank and at times outspoken, and I stand by that. It's ideological, it's commitment to what I believe in. And life is long, so I've done and said what I wanted to say, and I'm very happy that the Congress leadership actually sat with us and figured out how to move forward. It's not about disaffection, like you very curiously pointed out. It's not about individuals. I have nothing against any individual. I have nothing against any of my political opponents or rivals or co-workers. We all work in the same competitive landscape. It's never individual based. It's about issue based, and it's about how I think that when I was party president in Rajasthan, were all the promises we made. We went to village, I traveled 500,000 kilometers to the furthest parts of Rajasthan to cultivate the party because we were actually devastated in the previous elections. तो उन सब workers का लोगों का मनोबल बनाए रखने के लिए what more can we do? That's what we're all working toward now.
Okay, Sachin, I'm both a journalist, but I'm also a well-wisher of yours. That there's definitely disarray in the Congress, and when you're speaking about the leadership as having given you a very patient hearing, I think the entire country is dismayed because any democracy needs an opposition, and the Congress is not proving to be a sound enough opposition for a very strong government. A lot of that lies with the leadership and the way it is conducting itself. There's been, of course, your rebellion. One saw a similar situation in Madhya Pradesh, and then you've also had the Congress dissenters. So what, in your opinion, is the problem with this party, and why is it not proving to be the opposition it needs? If you bring up COVID, that's not fair because there are other political parties, Tejasvi Yadav, Jagan Reddy, Aditya Thackeray, who have all shown remarkable performance regardless of what the circumstances are.
Okay, so I think you've been quite harsh in analyzing what the Congress party has done. Yes, we are the only political outfit in this country that has the capacity and the bandwidth to take on the BJP. I'm not taking credit away from Tejasvi Yadav or Aditya Thackeray or whoever else is in the states. They play an important role, and I think we have to work together to amplify what they're doing. But pan-India national elections, the only political entity that has proven before and has, I think, the strength and the resolve and the commitment to defeat the BJP or the NDA is the Congress party. I'm happy to receive all the criticism that you can throw at us, but also don't forget, when has the Congress party failed to raise the voice? I mean, whether it's farmers' agitation, whether it's CAA, whether it's the economic situation, joblessness, migrant labor, as an opposition, we've done what we could do. In terms of electoral successes, are we having a proportionate result of that? That's up to question. But like I said to you, Congress is a very old party, and I think we all realize that we have to win state elections to be able to, mount a formidable challenge in 2024. We have to work together for opposition unity, And the government of India is very clever. You see, they keep dividing the major opposition parties using all sorts of means, which I won't go into, but that suits their narrative. But ultimately, India is a left of center, positive, open-minded, liberal economy with multi-diversity involved in its nation making. So the sense and the ethos of the party of the country has to resonate in its political dispensation. Right now, it's not happening. I don't challenge the BJP for what they believe in, because they have the right to believe in what they think is correct. But what India requires, what young people demand, is jobs, it's openness, not this narrative of love jihad and Romeo squads and all sorts of stuff that they keep talking about, changing names of cities and roads. India is much larger than that. We have to move beyond. 21st century can be India's century only if we get away from the narrative that the government of India and the BJP are pushing India towards. The television, the social media, all talking about divisions and Hindus and Muslims and caste and stuff. We have got to move beyond that. I mean, the new Mr. Yogi Adityanath went to Hyderabad to campaign for the municipal elections. What did he talk about? Change the name of the city. Call it something else. And that's not something that will resonate with a young, educated, forward-looking Indian citizen, whoever he or she may be. I think Congress party stands for that. And let's finish 1 second, Shoma. You can say Congress party didn't win that election, this election. Fair. I mean, the numbers are there for all to see. But don't forget that the Congress party still has presence in every state in this country. In every village, there'll be one home, at least, which will have a Congress flag and supporters. We have to galvanize that. And I'm fully mindful. You talked about those individual leaders who wrote letters to the Congress president. Most of them are now involved in important strategizing that the Congress party is doing. We're going to have elections the next couple of months. So things are moving along. We need to have patience. It's a very large party with many different opinions. But just because there's a difference of opinion doesn't mean that we are any less committed to be able to defeat the BJP when the time is right.
But Sachin, yes, I will continue to press on some of these points, because as I said, I think it's of national interest. It's not just of party interest. That yes, you said that the BJP has a very divisive political agenda, which in 2014, it was a hope agenda, it was a governance agenda. 2019, it's very clearly a much more communal and divisive agenda. But the point is that they are winning on those agendas. In Hyderabad, as you spoke, they actually did very well, and so the point that I'm making is that if you think that these ideas are to be defended, the ideas you spoke of, which is of India as an open, plural, liberal, all the things we are proud of, it needs a political vehicle. So, when one keeps hearing about the Congress having always been there, that's the work of your previous generations. It's not the work of what is going on right now across the board in this party. No one seems to be showing the initiative, the hard work. It's become a Twitter opposition. You're right. It raises these issues. It raises it on Twitter. It's not raising it on the ground.
Once, a couple of years ago, when the BJP was, all pervasive on the social media, people used to point fingers at the Congress party. You guys are not with the times. You don't use technology. Not that when we are using social media, even that seems to bother everybody. That why are you putting things on Facebook and social media and WhatsApp and Twitter? It's multi-pronged. We can't be absent from a medium which is so now, universal almost in this country. But I think we can argue as much as you want. I'm just saying to you that the commitment is there for us to see and for you to see. I'm of the opinion that unless we win states, and substantial numbers, we won't have the strength to really, have a huge victory in 2024. We all realize that, but there's 3 years to go. There's lots that's going on, some of which is open to public knowledge, some of which is not. Next few weeks and months, you'll see a decisive change, a more aggressive, on the ground actions of our leaders, and not just of people in New Delhi, but across. And I think we have to start working in districts. So the Congress, I think, has the ammunition, has the leadership qualities, not just people like me, but people younger than me. I'm 43. I'm by no stretch of imagination am I reflective of a average young Indian's age profile. The average Indian is 26, 27 years old. It's those people that we need to hand over leaderships to. In my time as party president, I had a slogan pretty formally declared 40 under 40. So we used to give 40% of tickets to people under the age of 40. it kind of incentivizes people. There's not just the older generation which will have all the tickets and all the nominations. So people know that you have to share political decision making. You have to make them stakeholders in what is the the political pie that we have as a ruling government or a ruling party.
Just one riposte to what you said about social media and Twitter. I don't think there's any criticism about the Congress becoming active on social media. It's exactly the word you used about it being multi-pronged. The BJP, as much as one may like or dislike their ideology, one admires their endeavor and effort and their multi-prongedness, that they have organizational strength, they work on the ground, their party presidents and district presidents are meeting their workers all the time. It's very sustained work and it's showing, so one will critique their ideas and what they are promoting in the country, but one cannot critique their effort. So, just to say that no one's criticizing the social media activism of the Congress, but the absence of ground activism is, in a democracy, definitely not something the country can afford. But coming back, there was a lot of a sense that, because your MLAs were holed up in Haryana, which is a BJP state, there was all those snippets of audio tapes, and there was a sense that, it was a failed coup, that you would have jumped ship, you, like Jyotiraditya, would have joined the BJP, but you did not muster the numbers, and so it was a failed coup. It's very, very depressing for an electorate to see people who jump divides, such vast ideological divides, and it looked like, you would have done that if it had not failed. What would be your answer to that?
Whatever anybody might allege today or want to insinuate, I had made my position very clear on the first day that we went to Delhi. We had issues with what was happening in Rajasthan, and I thought it's my right and my duty and my privilege to talk about this. And we did that in New Delhi. If it was about jumping ideologies, that I made very, very clear on day one, that I was never, ever going to do that. I had worked very hard as party president for 5 years and defeat the BJP in the hustings. For 5 years, Vasundarji was chief minister, and I took her on every day. I did padyatras, I had lathi charges, I got arrested, I did bhukartals, I did kisan yatras, and I made sure that the Congress from 21 MLAs is today 107. Not me alone, but as head of the family, it was my responsibility to deliver Rajasthan. I did that. But when I felt some things need to be corrected, I felt it is within my right to do that. And we've done what was required to be done. Now the committee has already started taking action and how to move things forward. And you'll see next few weeks, the committee's actions will result in work on the ground.
So I'll come to the other dissenters in the Congress who put up very, very valid concerns about what they feel is not happening within the party. One phrase they used was 24/7 leadership. Rahul Gandhi has not been displaying that. Do you think that this is a valid criticism of the central leadership? The ideology, the ideas, it's been built over more than 125 years. But leadership ultimately is what delivers an idea.
There's two ways to look at it. When you're in opposition, you have to have, the fall guy, and, buck stops with who's responsible, who's not. But whether it's Mrs. Sonia Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi, I don't think I would hold them responsible for the performance of the Panchayat polls in Rajasthan. I'm responsible. For me to say that we didn't do as well as we should have because, Mrs. Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi or Priyanka Gandhi have, X, Y, and Z issues, that's not fair. I mean, I'm being very candid about this. I have to take ownership. It's my state. I've been here for so many years. If I don't win those Panchayat polls, you can't blame the top leadership for everything. On the other hand, whatever points were raised, I think the Congress Working Committee, of which I'm not a member, but the Working Committee made a very, very specific and a clear roadmap as to what they need to do. In a very long meeting, they shared views, they had a discussion. Some people called it animated, but so what? At least they discussed, and Mrs. Gandhi and both Rahul Gandhi very clearly stated, yes, we'll take it up. We'll have elections to the different positions that they've asked for. And Mrs. Gandhi has not, unfortunately, been keeping well, and we all know that. But she did make the Congress party win twice back to back, which hadn't happened since Indira Gandhi's time. So, you win 2 elections, you lose 2 elections, it's okay. But the party and the ideology and the workers don't go anywhere. Nobody, I think, undermines or diminishes the effort that Mrs. Sonia Gandhi had put in to have a victory against Mr. Vajpayee, then stalwart of the NDA. In the life of 130 years of our Congress party, we won 2, we've lost 2 back to back, and we're ready to bounce back. So please don't discount. I think it's very easy for today's narrative in the popular media that the Congress can't come back and Congress doesn't have the fire in the belly to win elections. That's not true. There are a lot of us who, and you pointed out that pehle wali baat Nehru ji ki thi, unki thi. No, we have that burden of proof is there for us. We carry that legacy on our shoulders, that this is a party that held this country together for so long. I'm not taking all credit for it, but I think a portion of it has to be attributed to the Congress party's thinking, ideology, what we've done. So there's so much that we have to carry forward. And that weighs heavy on our shoulders. Ultimately, the collective objective is that how do we make sure that the Congress party wins elections? That's the ultimate objective of everybody who's a concerned congressman.
We'll move away now very soon from this. But when you're saying about Mrs. Gandhi being unwell, and when she won those 2 elections, actually, I've even spoken with BJP leaders who, gave her a lot of admiration, grudging or not. In politics, delivery is everything. And they did respect her for delivering those elections. But now, if she's unwell, in any party, somebody who's unwell does not have to de facto hold those positions. If Rahul Gandhi is not able to provide 24/7 leadership, he's a well-meaning man. He can provide different forms of leadership. I think a question anybody in this country will be interested in hearing your view on is that there has come to be a sense that the Congress cannot exist without the Gandhis. Why does the Congress have this psyche that the Congress cannot exist without Gandhi leadership?
I don't agree with your view, Shoma, because in 2019, when we performed well under what we expected, who took ownership? Rahul Gandhi said that I'm party president. I think it takes some moral conviction to do that. No, when you were saying the party is, belongs to the Gandhis, here is a man who said that we lost and I will take ownership. He didn't fire leaders and working committees. I'll take ownership. Everybody said, don't resign. Even we said, it doesn't matter. It's all collective responsibility. But he took that decision. How many people in today's politics will give up that position? How many? How many people will give up the job of the Prime Minister that Mrs. Sonia Gandhi did in 2004? So ये कहना गलत है ना कि they're stuck to something. It's the party who wants them because they feel that they can hold all leaders together. It may be a very selfish way to think of it, but in the Congress leadership has always maintained that, and why we lasted this long, parties banti hain, bigar jati hain. Party mein there is a collective cohesion. And who is that agent that brings that cohesion? It's Rahul and Sonia Gandhi today who are doing it. And they've said that, we'll have elections if you want it. And last time also when Mr. Rahul Gandhi became party president, it was an election. Nobody contested against him. It's a different story. But it's the party which told him, don't resign and become president. So it's wrong to say that they are trying to do it. I can't tell Shiv Sena that they should have Uddhav Thackeray as president or not. It's up to them. I don't tell BSP that they should have Mayawati as the party president. It's the party's choice. Whether people like that decision or not, elections pata padta hai. But it's wrong to say that someone is trying to, stick to something, by force. What is the process that Mr. JP Nadda became the BJP president in BJP? No one knows. Was there election? Who are the voters? Are they dissenters? Are they red lighters? There's different opinion. No one knows. So Congress has to undergo all scrutiny at all levels. But all other parties, you're happy to. You talked about Tejasvi Yadav. He's a great young man. But by what process did he become party president or working president? So you can't have different set of rules for different parties. Congress, of course, I think is very open and transparent about what's happening. And I think a lot of people have more interest in the Congress, even when we're in opposition, than they have in the ruling party. Fair enough. That's the price one has to pay. But I think we will sort this out. We will move forward. We all have to work together. Whether it's people in the so-called G23 or G200 or whatever it is, we all have to work together. Because I say this with all honesty, the ship belongs to everyone. If someone makes a hole in it, it's not that only a portion of it will go down. The whole thing will go away. You keep making everyone feel that the Congress party is down, over with. Not at all. I've traveled the country. I've traveled to Rajasthan. People are looking at what's happening in the government of India and how arrogant the BJP has gotten, with this majority, with this brute majority, passing bills, not having parliament session, changing laws, breaking up states, imposing all sorts of, religious rhetoric on the people of India. People see through it. I think this time will also pass and we will actually come up with a very positive alternate narrative. And that's what we'll present to the people of India. And I'm sure we'll be in the reckoning.
Speaking of Rahul Gandhi, his most harshest critics would say that he's a very well-meaning man. He constantly articulates a positive vision. When he's under criticism, very often ugly things are said about him. He's never lowered his rhetoric. And one is very appreciative of those aspects of him. He can be a hopeful figure. He doesn't have political endeavor or doesn't display it. And that's the big criticism of him. Straight after Mr. Nadda won Bihar, he was already hitting the road again for Bengal, or for Hyderabad or for anywhere else. They're in constant motion and endeavor. I think the big criticism of Congress right now that everyone feels across the board is not seeing political endeavor. I would push the point of asking why the party feels that only the Gandhis can be a cement. If you can finish making that point, because one hears this question all the time.
It's because I think the kind of presence and the unification capacities the family has, nobody else has. I don't think anybody looks at Mrs. Sonia Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi and thinks, well, he's North Indian, South Indian, he's this religion, that religion. And all of us have our identities, very tightly stuck to us. I think they transcend that. So somebody from Kerala or somebody from Ladakh will have the same sort of affinity towards Mrs. Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi as they would have, to their own, people from their own states. That's one unifying factor. Another thing is that there are factions in every party. But when it comes to them, and Mrs. Gandhi in particular, when she says, or Mr. Rahul Gandhi says something, I think all Congress workers tend to follow that. It's something that's been there for decades. And I think it's not a bad thing, because you need someone to unify, someone to call truce, someone to bring people together. There's always turf wars, there are ego clashes, but I think they're able to transcend that in a leadership role. And they don't do it dictatorially. I know this from personal experience. It's never mandated कि आपको ये करना है. I mean, they've listened to it, and they're quite, I think, quite just in taking a view. And that is why everybody will respect it. If you were biased and taking sides, which was not appreciated, this quality won't stretch this long, right? It's only stretched this long because there is sanctity in the process, there is satisfaction in the way things are dealt with, and things are managed. And, you move along, because ultimately your aim is to make sure that the party gets stronger, and not, whether it's my will that prevails or somebody else's will that prevails. So they're able to ensure that in a way that's meaningful. And I think that's a quality that all Congress people across the country appreciate. And I think it's very, I'm telling you very frankly, my 20 years of, working as a Congress worker, this has been my experience.
The journalistic side of me insists that I put forward, some of the counter discomforts that people, that when you're saying that they're able to patch up, but actually the Congress in this time under their leadership have lost some very, very important people, whether it's Himanta Biswa Sarma or it's Jagan Reddy, Priyanka Chaturvedi, a lot of talented people, Jyotiraditya, people around him. You saying that they have, satisfied your sense of frustration, but there seems to be incapacity even to handle the small personnel problems, So when you're taking on someone as powerful as the BJP, there is a sense of, as I said, as a country, there's a sense of dismay that you want a very, very powerful opposition for a very powerful government, which is really why, as you said, the Congress gets so much attention. I'll accept your criticism that this is the first time that a national media is more interested in criticizing the opposition than in criticizing government. And that's the capitulation of the media, and certainly a counter criticism you can throw at the media.
Okay, I'll make 2 points. One, we were in government for 10 years, from 2004 to 14. Everything that went wrong in this country, whether it's increase in the LPG gas cylinder, fuel prices, climate change, nuclear deal, the Congress party was facing the brunt of it for 10 years. Abhi 7 saal se hum log, we are in opposition. And yet Congress party is blamed for everything. No one is questioning the narrative, the discourse, the breakdown of constitutional authorities, weakening the institution that we so, fondly created for 50 years. So the criticism for the Congress party remains the same, whether we are in government or in opposition. Is it fair? I ask you. Today, people have clear, brute majority, complete majority in parliament. The actions taken, the use of agencies, the institutions that are, renowned world over are losing significance. They are losing, people losing faith in that. Isn't that far more traumatic than, what the working committee does or does not do? Of course, we have a responsibility, we have a role to play, and we will play it, whether in opposition or otherwise. I'm just saying that, and the other point you said, Shoma, someone left the party. Now, you can resolve a discord. You can educate a difference of opinion. But if someone is determined to leave the party, this, nobody can do anything. I mean, in the BJP, Uma Bharti left the BJP, Kalyan Singh left the BJP, Yashwant Sinha left the BJP, despite them having all this majority and this, strong leadership at the center. So someone leaving the party is something that they have to pursue their own, minds and their own ideology and their own ambitions. But within the organization, there is a process where I think it's best resolved when Mr. Gandhi and Mrs. Gandhi resolve it, sit down together. I think they do it much better. If anybody else was doing it, you probably will have much more fault lines and fissures within the organization than we have today. And last point I'll make, the Congress party in parliament, but don't forget, in the previous government, the first thing the Modi government did was to pull back the Land Acquisition Act and to dilute it. 8 times it brought ordinance. We were only 40 odd MPs at that time. But with our opposition within the parliament and outside, we forced them to take it back. The farm agitation is happening in the country. They're trying everything they can. Their allies have left them. ND has left them. The Akali Dal has left them. Other parties are leaving them. The Congress is not trying to politicize the issue, but we can't shun our responsibility as to what we think is right or wrong. So numbers don't signify the impact that you can have. And the Congress party is taking up this issue very strongly across the country. I can assure you that ultimately the farmers will win, and we will be supporting them, shoulder to shoulder till the end.
Let's come to the farmer issue because it's the most urgent one. What is the Congress's vision on the farm issue? Rahul Gandhi started, Mandasur was a very, very big event. The BJP was in power. Now, over these last few years, there has been, so much of farm unrest. In fact, the left parties created a huge show of strength, huge farmer rallies before 2019. There was a sense that the BJP really was in trouble because until the Balakot attack, of course, happened. Where has the Congress shown consistent engagement with the issue on ground? Why was that engagement not sustained? And what is Congress's position on farm issues?
The farmers' issue, if you try and make it political, the BJP will get a good reason not to adhere to those demands. They will very well say, well, this is the Congress party's demand and we don't agree to it. So everyone has been very careful about making it a genuine farmers' issue and not a Congress or a Janata Dal or a BSP, SP issue. It's not a political issue. But as political parties, we've supported that movement. Not just my party. 25 parties across the country have come forward to support this issue. It's very, I think, mindfully done that it should be the farmers' issue, and we only back it politically and morally. The Congress party, I don't want to go back too much into history, Shoma, but don't forget, when Indira Gandhi was there, we had to import, inedible wheat from the US, which they only used to feed cattle. That's the kind of feed we used to import. The Green Revolution, the White Revolution, making tiller the owner of their land, giving them not just empathy, but also empowering them. It happened over decades. It doesn't happen over 2 months. But the mindset was, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. You can argue the farmers are not as well off as we'd all like them to be. But also don't forget that the Congress party had in its cabinet, in its leadership, individuals who spoke about farmers. I don't see a single person in the current BJP who has any connection with the farming community or who has any empathy or compassion to their cause. I belong to farming community. My grandfather all did farming. So I don't claim to be a farmer, but I know exactly what it takes for a farmer, with a 3 biga land, what the economics are, what the compulsions are, what the social pressures are, and what hardships they face to, raise a loan of 10,000 rupees. So the farmers issue, we're very clear. I think the 3 bills have to be taken back because now there's distrust. And when there's distrust, there can't be a positive ecosystem. The people who are sitting on the borders of Delhi, they have to be taken into confidence, giving not just assurances, but they have to believe that what's happening is in the best interest, in their best interest.
When I asked you about what is the farm vision of the Congress, it's not just to do with the MSP and the Punjab and Haryana farmers. I'm asking that this was such a burning issue. Where has Congress articulated a vision completely new for 21st century India, not harking back? We know that there have been a lot of trouble with farmers. There have been farmer suicides, repeated distress, migration on a mass scale, not organic, not aspirational, but distress migration. And the vision of the Congress was, in fact, that India needs only urbanization and industrialization. You have never given a very thought out alternative vision for...
Associated, hang on, I've been very close.
Congress wanted to also repeal the APMC Act.
That's wrong. I want to remove that misunderstanding. We said that we must have more mandis, more structured organizations taking care of the food output production that we do in all of India. The cooperative system has been successful in a few states. Why is it not successful in all states? Replicate those sort of blueprints. And the farming community needs to be empowered. It's not right. See, why are we talking about MSP? That's the benchmark that the government creates. If there is no benchmark, tomorrow there'll be collusion by 5 companies and they'll buy grain at whatever price they want. And to resolve that dispute, you have to go to the SDM. You can't go to the courts. And how can a 2 bigger farmer take on a Walmart or a Sainsbury or a Tesco? It's just not possible. So those are fears, real fears. We can talk about the roadmap, but I'm saying these are livelihood issues for next 2 or 3 years. And they're completely unmindful of these worries that the farmers have. We in the Congress, and I think can speak for the party on this platform because I'm very closely associated with outlining our views on this, that we have to not just do farm loan waivers and give them subsidies and freebies. What farmers want is real input in terms of investments, in terms of agricultural implements. You have to have cooperative farming. You've got to develop non-traditional crop patterns, fresh fruits and vegetables which get a much higher market value. We have to start doing milk and processing of the food products, because today we are self-sufficient, but farmers unfortunately through generations are growing the same sugarcane, same rice, same wheat. The soil gets tired. We have to start doing change of pattern of crops. There's so many things, and I think small incremental changes can make a qualitative difference in the lives of the farming community. And we never include, when you save electricity, water, manure, seed, we never take into account the labor the farming family puts in. It's not the farmer. I think women work much harder on the fields. In fact, if you go to any part of India, you will see women working in the fields much more than men. So that labor is free, is it? And when we can have all sorts of compensations for government employees, we have DNS allowance, we have travel allowance, we have medical allowance, we have insurance, we have education allowance. What about the farmers?
How do you think corporate participation should or can be designed to come into farming?
I think we need inputs, and government, of course, can't provide all the investments that the agribusiness needs. You need private participation. And I think my party and we all are open to that. Why should not we have billions poured into the farming sector where the farmer can take advantage of those processes and make his life better? What's happening now is the other way. It's tilted to one side so heavily that there's complete mistrust. And in every industry there is collusion, there is monopolistic practices unless there is a watchdog. Who's the watchdog here? For telecom, for cement, for coal, we have a watchdog. We have a competition commission. But here, if 5-6 companies collude, what is the fallback option? Farming sector with such a large market share of our economy, is it not against national interest to have a few monopolies collude and then take our national food security to ransom? I don't think they've thought this through. Just to look good by saying we reform the farm sector, this is not reform. This is basically allowing something to happen without a checks and balance in place.
Can you, in 4-5 bullet points, really enunciate what you see should be a positive way forward?
I come from the background that is very closely associated with farming. My father was, very smart. When I was very young, I used to be packed off almost every holiday into the village, so I could see exactly what's going on. I used to cry in crib, when I was younger in summertime, to be going and spending time there. But I think that was so important for me to see in real time what is going on. I think what we have to do is first, we have to make them financially secure. You see, every entrepreneur has an asset. The farmer has a land. The Kisan credit card is a good beginning, but it's very difficult, the cumbersome bureaucracy, paperwork. People don't realize that they have a huge asset that they can monetize. Once farmer has the liquidity and the credit available, they can do many more things, right? Second, you have to diversify the basket of products that people produce. Also, dairy farming. You'd be surprised in Rajasthan, in my state of Rajasthan, almost 45% of the income that farmers get, cash flow income, is from daily sale of milk. That cooperative federal structure of milk distribution that happened for Amul, why can't it be replicated in every state? Third, we can't imagine that India, with such a large agrarian population, will shift from the farmland straight to become, software engineers. I'm sure they will, but I'm saying there has to be a gradual migration. Our industrialization should happen in rural areas where the movement is not from village to cities, but from village to village, where people can become employable on the shop floor, in factories and industry, and then move up the value chain. It's a very natural progression. Fourth, the farmers, I still believe, need access to markets, but it must be a market that's not one-sided. It must be favoring the farmers. And we must not imagine a country where, I think Government of India document talks about reducing the farming population from 2/3 to like 1/3 in the next 15-20 years. That's the wrong way to approach things. That's not the way we should do it. We have to make farmers stay in the farming community, make it more productive, have better yield, have more disposable income, get better education. And once you do all of that, it'll all improve, sanitation, mortality rate, malnutrition. It's all linked to what the farmer today gets or does not get.
Okay, so just to end on, Sachin, what is the vision that the Congress wants to fight for today in 2021? The Congress today is almost afraid to be seen as allied with the Muslims. It has let down ideas of secularism before. It has been guilty of just, optical appeasement, because actually Muslims are in a terrible economic situation in the country. So again, don't hark back to the past. 2021, what does the Congress stand for? What is this vision that people should buy into?
It's a very long answer. I'll try and be short about this, Shoma. I'm very clear about my party. We believe every Indian citizen is equal. I'm very convinced about this, that we have to be open about what we stand for. And what we stand for, what I stand for, what the party stands for, is that everybody is equal. This Mandir Masjid discussion, India is a plural country. We're a secular country. Everyone must be seen equally and they must be treated equally. What's happening now is that, like I said earlier, this whole Romeo squads in UP and this love jihad and this, interfaith marriages, etc. India has moved beyond that. That was all settled. I think we are here today on the back of, what we've learned in the last 30, 40, 50 years. India has moved forward. Young people today want jobs. They want peace. They want security. They want good atmosphere to bring up their kids. They want, clean air to breathe. They want good jobs. That's what we have to focus on. We can't keep talking about the Hindu, Muslim, Jain, Buddha. We are free to practice our own religion, but the religion is a matter of head and heart. You don't wear it in your sleeve every day. You don't demonstrate that. And, people who do that, please mark my words, they're doing it not because they're religious, because they want to give that energy. They want to portray, they want to, tell the world about what they are. You should judge a politician by his or her policies, commitment and work, and not who he or she prays to, who they're married to, and what God they believe in. That's a matter of my home. But as a public person, my actions, my work, my speeches, my conduct, my policies, my programs, my thought, my ideology, that's more important. Not what clothes I wear or what food I eat and who I marry and who I pray to. And these are all personal matters. But when you bring them together, it touches everyone's emotions. And some people are trying to misuse that emotion and get people to cast votes on that. People will see through it. Be positive. Governments will come and go, Shoma. It doesn't matter, win or lose. But this country is much larger and bigger. This 1.3 billion people is much bigger than the Congress and the BJP. We, in our lifetime, must do what we can to give them the best India that we can create for them.
Thank you so much for taking my questions and for remaining a political leader with a long road ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sachin.